Good evening, everybody. I call to order the January 2019 meeting of the Fox Point Village Board. Happy New Year. It is January 8, 2019, 7 p.m. at Fox Point Village Hall. Welcome, everybody. I'll ask the clerk treasurer to call the roll.
Trustee Hanstead?
Here.
Trustee Simchich? Here. Trustee Sumner? Trustee Tirado?
Here.
Trustee Kravitz? Trustee Ullman?
Here.
And President Frazier.
Here. We have a quorum. We'll move to agenda item 2, persons desiring to be heard. I have some speaker cards. You can speak on matters on or off the agenda. Everybody gets 3 minutes. If you wish to split your time and defer, or just defer your entire time to when an agenda item is called, you may. Our first speaker is Elizabeth A. Leon.
To West Bergen Court. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to ask a question that I've asked in the past but hasn't really been addressed, which is how does the village prioritize its capital projects? We know that there are a lot of big projects that are coming up. We have infrastructure projects, we have potential spending for a library, we have potential spending for a pool. And I feel that I understand that in the past the budget process has been perhaps burdensome. Some of the meetings were incredibly long, but I feel like the process has gone too far in the other direction. And that these are projects that could involve significant amounts of money, that input from village residents is very important when it comes to this. And in the past, the village did have a 10-year calendar that listed potential projects. It was very clear that these were not anything that were budgeted for. These were not things that, they might have a broad range of costs. It wasn't clear what the actual cost might be, but there might be a range. And there were potential times when these might come up. And I think that this not only was a reasonable thing to do, I think it was the only responsible thing to do, so that there was some vision for projects that are coming up, and there's some way for citizens to know and to have input. And perhaps this is something that could be put in, as on the website, a potential calendar like this. It could something that could be an article in the Fox Point magazine. Something so that people are aware and so that they feel that there is a process where there's a chance to have input. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Rifkin. Ms. Rifkin.
Michelle Rifkin, 7821 North Mohawk Road. I have some questions for you, and I'd like some answers. If not, we just walk from there. Are you going to answer any emails that I sent you in the past month and address the very serious ethic violation that was done correctly, right? And yes, I did get in the mail. Yes, I get the certified mail return. The question is, are you going to address it? Nothing else matters, because there is a step above that that's not a prettier step. So this is up to you guys. So here's the question. Are you going to answer anything? Maybe we'll start with you, Christine.
No, Ms. Rifkin, this is not a question.
Oh, okay. So that would be a no. That's all I need to.
You can address the board.
Okay, any board members wish to answer anything without Doug here telling you not to? Anyone want to stick up for themselves and man up or women up? No, I'll take that as a no. I got that as a no.
Discretion.
No, you have no minutes. I'm on my 3. If I was a tax client at DeWitt Law Firm, where you're an attorney, and I do a lot of research, is this how you would treat your clients that come to you, would you give them 3 minutes to discuss a very serious matter? Or would you treat them, or do you treat them, I will find out, like you're treating me? Would you like to answer that? Or do you want your boss to ask you that? I'll take that as a no. Okay. Next. Any board member, oh, good, hello, Liz. Any board member visit Azure Memory Care Center unannounced? Anybody want to challenge Doug? On their own, be a man. No one. We'll take that as a no. No problem. Did you know that all the employees of Azure Memory Care Center that you're putting spit distance from my house, not only are they not all RNs, the one that's on duty, they're not all CNAs, they aren't even, they're just people that apply for a job and take care of these patients. I bet you didn't know that, but I talked to Matt Lyons, and I got a lot of information about that, but you probably talked to him. By the way, those are the people that will be training people, your elders, your family, at some point. So that'd be a no, you didn't know that. Okay. Anyone care to address the emails I sent to you? You guys may want to call, but no one comes. I gave up on it. Did you know that 2 recent women are convicted felons from Azura Memory Care Center for, and I'm going to go old school on this, for taking pictures of men's elderly genitalia, laughing about it at Azura with the other people working there. Did you know that? You should know. I sent you all the email. No one responded. Do you think I want those people? And what way do you do background checks? So it would have happened, right? Disgusting.
You're at 3 minutes.
Okay, and you know what? Can someone just give me their minute?
Ms. Rifkin?
Okay, Lori called in, he said he'll give me his minute. Okay, did you know there's 3 emergency exits coming from Azura, one facing the Port Road where there's no lights? The person can push on the red bar and go right onto Port Road. That will happen. All of you are going to be held responsible for when that person dies by walking out of that memory care center because they're overbooked and they fall asleep on the job, and it happened at Perspective, New Perspective on Brown Deer for an hour and a half. Did you know it's called elopement? Did you know that? That happens all the time. It's called elopement. Okay? And by the way, Mr. Lyons over there, and I have one more thing. By the way, you're noxious, just like your weed that you write about in the paper. That's what a noxious weed is. You're a noxious weed. You raise the grade of the buildings across from me. You guys didn't know that because you really don't know what. Don't make your face. He did. You raised the grade. He didn't care about it. I want that berm across all of Dunwood raised up just as high as you put the buildings up high and the memory. I want it all the way across Dunwood. Where I'll be greeting everybody at that door when they come in. And when the sign goes up and says, coming soon, Memory Care Center next to the apartments, one crime happens, Mr. Noxious Weed, one crime. I will be at you with law firm.
Your time is expired.
Okay, and I have one more thing.
No.
No.
You're
no.
You will take
You're no.
Ms. Rifkin.
Answer a question then.
You will
Answer a question.
You will take your seat
You're a big
now,
baby.
Ms.
And you know what? I'm calling to Wisconsin State Bar and I'm reporting all the attorneys. And I'm calling your DeWitt boss.
You may withdraw.
Now we'll deal.
You may withdraw.
Man up, all of you. No, you're all scared of him. He's a baby. He was like the guy on the playground that the younger get made fun of.
Our next speaker is Mr. Larry Cohen. Mr. Cohen.
DWITT. Got it.
Larry Cohen, 200 West Chisholm. Or whatever it is. I know you want to answer the question. Did you get my email? I just received a response. So I sent the president an email with a link to a podcast that I appreciate each of you listening to. If you're interested, if you are, you know how to contact me. I've got the link right here. I printed it out. I think it's very instructive. 3-minute comment period, and no questions are ever answered. It's just it's a lousy way to conduct local government. Sorry I couldn't be with you last month for your monthly scolding that you all deserve. Hope you had as noisy and obnoxious holiday as I did in my house. I'm wondering if anyone has Dunwood Road. Are you bored?
Yes.
Are you bored? I'm sorry. I have 3 minutes. I intend to scold you for the 3 minutes, because that's all you have to put up with, okay? That's a lousy, know-it-all attitude. Has anyone walked down Dunwood, or I invite you to stand in my driveway and look at the buildings and tell me honestly that this is really what you had envisioned when all of this was approved? And I know nobody approved this. That's the whole problem with this process. No board approved this as such. But everyone had a decision, and here we sit with these 5 new buildings, soon with Azura to be 6. But the 5 buildings that they built, and can you tell me this is really what you envisioned? I will stop, as I offered before, I'd be glad to stop coming here and scolding you if anybody would actually walk onto my driveway, come up and talk to me. Not a one of you have bothered to contact me. Mandela, of course, would never contact me to ask, hey, how about the trash that blows into your driveway or onto your lawn? Could we pick it up here? That, of course, isn't going to happen. But one of you, just stand at the driveway and say, yeah, this was the best decision. We have no doubt this was the best decision. I don't believe it. So until I see something like that, I'm going to have to keep coming here and reminding you. Tonight, it's a lovely night out, so I get to hear the flapping of the weather wrapping that they put around the buildings because it's not quite finished. And in this wind, the sound of that plastic flapping and hitting against the buildings all night long. And yeah, that'll go away too one day, sure. But it's been over a year now. I've been living.
Excuse me, you're at.
I'm at my limit.
Now, would you like another minute?
I'd love another minute. I'd love an answer to the question. The lights now, you know, supposed to be no sidewalks. Sidewalks have been a thing here lately. Street lights. No street lights are allowed, but now my house is lit up all night long because of this. And that's just the construction lights. What's going to happen when people actually move in and the light packs on the outside of the buildings are on all the time? The noise is endless. The flapping of the plastic weather wrapping around the buildings, it's endless. The dust is unbelievable. Fortunately, it was blowing away from me today. And I know all that's just construction. It's not going to happen. It's not going to last forever. But I'll be here to remind all of you every month that I'm in town what a lovely gift it's been. You have changed the nature of this neighborhood forever, and nobody cares, and nobody has bothered to give me 1 minute of their time to actually come out and experience it day or night.
Mr. Powell, speaking of time, your time.
Day or night. I welcome somebody.
I'll ask
Is
you.
anybody
Now,
interested?
Mr. Powell. Thank you. Would anyone else wish to be heard on a matter on or off the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item 3, which is a public hearing. This public hearing actually has been withdrawn because the applicant withdrew the request for conditional use permit. So we don't have to address it. We move to agenda item 4, the Planning Commission reports. The Planning Commission met yesterday, January 7th, 2019, on 2 applications for land combinations. Mr. Bonstead, did you care to give the reports?
Sure. These were land combinations, one on Thorn Lane and one on Beach Drive. So these are properties where 2 adjacent lots were owned by the same people. I'll talk about them together because the issues are the same. Land combinations are different than land divisions. Land divisions, we have all sorts of issues about setbacks and minimum lot sizes and access and all that. There really are no standards when it comes to combination because there aren't any issues about setbacks and minimum lot size and all that. All they have to do is pay a fee and supply us with a survey map. The Plan Commission considered both of the applications and recommended to this board that the applications be approved and that the preliminary survey map be accepted as final survey maps.
Thank you. Any questions from the board about Mr. Constant's reports? Very well. We move to the consent agenda. Does any member of the board wish to remove an item from the consent agenda without debate? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. So, Mr. Ullman?
Second.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We move to 6A, new business. 6A is a matter concerning the adoption of an ordinance concerning vacation rental establishments. 6B is to adopt an ordinance to repeal or recreate the definition of timeshare property. I'll ask the village attorney to report on each of these, but since they are related, we can talk about both.
Thank you. Yes, they are related. And just to sort of cut to the chase, I'll circle back, but we are not ready to act on the second outbound, which is an amendment to the zoning code. That one would be a referral to the Plan Commission for a report and recommendation. And we can set a public hearing on that one. And given that we have to do that one through that process, I'm recommending that we do them both together. So I'm going to recommend that we defer action on both of them. We're just introducing the idea today, and I want to give you a lot of background on it because this has been an issue in the village, and then I want to talk about the recent legislation that has sort of caused us to have to revisit it, and then I'll walk quickly through the draft ordinances and answer any questions. So the background is what we're talking about with vacation rental. This is, many people use them. I use them. VRBO, Airbnb, these are renting people's houses. You go on vacation, you rent someone's house. This is what these ordinances regulate. It's a policy issue of whether you want to regulate it at all. But many, especially more established communities, it's more affluent areas generally where these things come up and where they become a problem. Because in a residential community, when you have somebody next door who's more or less operating a business, rather than living in the house as a home, it can create conflicts in the neighborhood. Due to the intensity of the use, the traffic, the parking, the noise, adverse impacts on neighbors, people using a short-term rental are there to have fun. You know, they aren't there to live. They aren't there to be a part of the community. They're there because they're visiting the area and they're there on vacation. That's why it's called a vacation rental. It's often much more party every day kind of a situation than having a normal residential neighbor. So there are health, safety, welfare, property value concerns, legitimate municipal concerns. We have also seen that there are health and safety issues for the tenants. The tenants will show up and find out that it's not as advertised. It's not safe. It's not well maintained. There are concerns with rodents and insects and stuff. So that's the general background. The background in Fox Point is this really came to a head in Fox Point about a decade ago. We had a village resident who was complained about by his tenants. The tenants contacted the police saying, you know, I purchased this time in this house in your community, and here's what I found. And they showed photographs. It was a much worse situation than advertised. Through a series of issues involving that person, litigation, which was ultimately prevailed on, the village prevailed. At the same time, the village considered how do we want to regulate this. And so the village adopted a zoning ordinance that created a very strict regulation for any rental of residential property for any period of time less than 120 days. 120 days was the policy decision of the board. That's what they thought was reasonable. If you're going to be gone over the summer, fine, rent it out for 121 days and you're fine. But if you rent it out for 119 days, you can't do that. If you rent it out for a week, you can't do that. It actually was, you can't do it without specific zoning approval. It's treated like a timeshare property. In our code, timeshare property is regulated as a planned unit development, where there's a significant review process that would have to take place under our current code to allow a short-term rental less than 120 days. That's still our current ordinance. That was adopted in 2010, I believe. So what's bringing this to a head is this became more and more of an issue throughout the state. The state got involved. They adopted legislation with the budget bill in September of 2017. There was no debate, and it was one of those things that people were surprised to find after the fact was adopted through the budget bill.
It's interesting how that happens, isn't it? Little nuggets pop up in the fact.
Right. They created a statute at 66.1014, Wisconsin statutes. Some of the key provisions are municipalities can only prohibit rentals for less than 7 days. 6 days or less. So we currently regulate 120 days or less. This brings that down to 6 days or less. So if somebody's renting out for a week, they're not prohibited from doing that. And we're preempted by this state legislation. We don't have an ability to create some different rule. There are a couple things that municipalities can do. One thing that we can do is we can limit the period of time to half a year. And I don't know what the thought process was. I don't know how they came up with that, but we can limit them to only 6 months, 180 days in a year that they can operate a short-term rental. Unfortunately, we don't get to define what 180 days. The operator gets to tell us, okay, today's day one of 180 days. And then from that point, they have 180 days that they can operate their short-term rental. So they could have one person every day, rented out daily.
Is that 180 days contiguous?
It's consecutive days. Consecutive days. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, it's consecutive.
So that is the 6-day period that we can regulate is superseded by this 180-day period, because we have one person every day, or is it every 6 days?
Well, I guess I fudged that. Let's say a week. Let's say they could rent it out every week for 180 days. They could rent it out every single day unless we regulate and prohibit
Yeah, okay.
for less than
Yes,
7.
that's what I mean. So we could have regulations saying that the minimum rent period is 6 days.
Yes.
And then they could have rolling 6-day periods or something.
Yes.
Something like that. And somebody could basically have a business of renting out their property for 6 months of the year.
Right.
And limiting it the other 6 months.
Right.
30 distinct months. 6 days. But 30 distinct rentals is 6 days apiece.
Yep.
The other significant thing that we can do is we can require a local license. There is a state license that they're required to have. We can also require a local license. And some of my communities have been quite restrictive in their licensing terms. They are definitely health, safety, welfare, protection of property restrictions that they put in their license. But you know, we have the ability to do that, and we can be.
How much can you charge for a license?
Well, we can only charge the amount that recovers our costs. There's a separate state authority. We can't use it as money making, except that is a good segue, because there is an ability in the statute to impose a room tax. It can be 8% of up to 8% of the cost of the rental as room tax. The problem with that, and the reason that might not be so appealing, is 70% of that money that's recovered for that has to be used for tourism, supporting tourism in the village.
Which is not uncommon.
Well, it's not uncommon. There are a lot of communities that do this, collect room taxes from all of their hotels, all their motels, and they have a commission that operates a tourism industry in the municipality.
You sound like Fox Point, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture this.
Well, Eric and I talked about the room tax like 2 years ago, and I still have it on my desk, and whether or not the foundation in Fox Point would qualify as a tourism organization. Probably not.
I just don't like the idea of encouraging tourists to come to our community, which is residential.
And that's very valid in Fox Point. We're a residential community, and then the flip side is, would you be comfortable shipping your tourism dollars to the, what is it, Glendale/North Shore Chamber of Commerce? I mean, you could do that, and you could make the argument that the growth of Glendale's economic base benefits the Nick Lake School District, benefits whatever, so, you know,
Well, and their hotels are right across the
and
street.
the hotels are right across the street. So I'm just, we have chewed on that a little bit.
So we have to change the ordinance.
So yes, our ordinance has been preempted. We do have to change it. And so what I've presented, and it's in your packet, there are actually two ordinances. The simpler one is the zoning one. What the zoning one does is it takes the whole issue out of the zoning code. As I said, from 2010, when this was adopted, the idea was we were going to tie vacation rental, link it up with timeshares. Yeah, sorry, I lost the word. Link it up with timeshare property and treat it the same way. And I'm proposing that let's just take it completely out of that, and let's adopt a licensing ordinance. The statute allows us to license them. So another advantage of getting it out of zoning is then we avoid all the non-conforming use kinds of issues, which we shouldn't have to deal with because it's really a license that people are getting.
Well, I got a question.
Yeah, does this affect the people that own a house and they rent the house out to somebody for years?
No, not for years. It's only short-term rental we're talking about. And in fact, if they don't require a state tourist license, which is triggered when they go for under 29 days, then it's not going to be regulated.
I'm wondering about your recommendation of taking it out of the zoning, because you're saying it's kind of cumbersome, but that may be a good thing. We are trying to avoid having too many of these situations. It's kind of impediment, I guess.
But we're preempted. We cannot regulate it the way we currently do in zoning.
And with the kind timeshare thing is,
The timeshare thing is off the table, we can't do it. The longer ordinance that I presented here is the licensing ordinance, and I'm just gonna walk through that quickly. Looks like it starts on page 59 of the packet. I'm going to start with the application on page 2. This outlines everything that we expect to receive in an application. One of the key things is that we expect to get an application every time it's rented. We are not just asking for an annual kind of a license, we're asking for, we want a license every single time they're going to have a tenant.
We can do that?
Well, I have municipalities that have done that. It's up to you whether you think it's the right policy decision. The statute just says that we can license them. And it doesn't say anything about what the term of the license would be.
So in other words, every rental for a week may require a separate application?
Right.
And how far in advance can we require that occur?
This is drafted to say 48 hours.
Can the village manager approves?
Yes.
Is there a fee involved in that?
There is a fee. At this point, it just says it's a fee as established by separate resolution. But it would be designed to recover our costs of administration.
How about adding, you ask for their name, full name, address, and all that, how about their date of birth? Can you ask that?
I guess I don't know, is there a reason why we would?
Well, you got John Smith, and, want to get a problem with John Smith. Enough John Smiths in the world, if you put the date of birth down, you have one more way of checking people out.
Are we permitted to do checks, background checks on proposed lessons?
Probably not. I don't know. I mean, they aren't applying for work with us. You know, we are not asking for a waiver. I don't know that we could ask them to waive that.
The issue is what we, even if we found something about, they own their own property. I mean,
How close are these kind of vacation rentals to public accommodation and rules that apply to those?
Very close. In fact, the state requires quite a lot of vacation rentals. They require, as part of their licensing, they require that it be built to commercial code standards, and it has to have sprinklers and alarm systems. So it is very much like a small hotel once you get your license from the state.
and I did not pull the statute up to see what the definition of a vacation rental establishment is. Maybe you could share that with us, because, I mean, is it clear that, or, I mean, a private home that somebody lists on Airbnb, is that clearly a vacation rental?
Not necessarily. I mean, it should be. If it's operating legally in the state, it has the state tourist rooming house license.
That sounds like, when you say it should be, that a lot of this goes on unregulated, right?
I would agree with you.
I don't know the answer. I mean, if any law, I'm sure they're not self-enforcing. So.
Well, I would think that there are, there may be people renting out their houses on an Airbnb situation, and their neighbors are aware of it, because it's all done very well, yeah, very quiet. There are other situations where, like, we had a situation we had 10 years ago, where there's traffic and noise and trash and all that sort of thing, and because the neighbors are very much aware of it, very unhappy guess the question that leads me to is, we enforce our ordinances through complaint primarily. If we get a complaint, what's the mechanism for us to, and what are the, consequences for when we enforce, somebody who's doing this in violation of our licensing ordinance?
We impose our penalties, it's up to $2,000 per day, general penalty. Again, it doesn't happen automatically, we have to start issuing citations, or we've got to bring an action to get an injunction.
Assuming they don't have a municipal license, I'm probably assuming they don't have the state license either. Who files, and this is just, I don't know the answer, who files the citation, I guess, for not having a state license? Is that something that the sheriff does, or is that something, is that a county action? I don't know.
Chris, will you do it?
If we're not having a state license, we would enforce our own ordinance, but the state, I don't know who would do it. I guess, no, it'd be it would be the Milwaukee County District Attorney, so it likely would not happen.
We're having a nice discussion about it.
Right, that points to the need for local control.
You have to go after just the owner, not going after the person renting. Right?
Right.
Just the owner of the property.
And they would be the ones who violated the license.
Licenses, and then you have, do you need the people that rented it as witnesses?
Well, we need to have evidence, one of the requirements.
Usually the neighbors are pretty good witnesses in these situations.
And you can, in the past, we've gathered enough information off the internet, because they're advertising on the internet, showing pictures of the house, and they have all kinds of information on the internet, so it's pretty easy to prove that they're doing it that way.
You indicated that, other clients of yours are grappling with this, and some have, fairly restrictive, and some maybe. Can you provide us with some kind of examples of what other people are doing? So, kind of give us a little more context here.
I can. I can tell you that what I've provided you here is based on one of our most restrictive models. I sort of started from the assumption that Fox Point's going to want to be restricted. It's entirely up to you.
Direction I gave.
I think that's an appropriate assumption.
Yeah, it's entirely a policy matter, but if you look at these standards that start on page 3 and carry through to page 5, they're quite restrictive standards that we expect these operators to abide by.
President Fraser?
Yeah.
President Fraser. Maybe this goes to the restrictive nature of this, but on item G on page 5 for prohibition on 6 days, 6 consecutive days, what, is that based off of, it can't be a state law, or is that just more?
That's the state law.
Is it?
Yeah, that's state law.
So, in my sense, then almost all the Airbnbs that I've seen in Wisconsin are violation of state law, because I see all sorts of them that you can do it for a weekend, one night. You look at right, yeah. That seems to be kind of like.
Okay, so you're talking about the prohibition of operating fewer than 6 days. That's something that we are creating. State law allows us to impose that requirement that it has to be at least a week.
Okay, so that's ours, okay. Because my general thought is I think as much as it is good to obviously protect the community, property value, this is a part of a new economy. This is a business, billion-dollar business. A lot of them are on weekend rentals. Like you said, you've done some, I have too, that are less than 6 days. potentially restrict people to not be able to list their homes for a vacation rental for a weekend if they so like to do so, if that's the case. It would kind of be an exception in a lot of places. Most places do allow it.
I'm not sure. What's your sense?
My sense is that there are a lot of places that allow it, but a lot of my clients have, as I said, I think it depends on the character of the community. If you're a residential community where living in the community is primary thing that's going on, not commercial businesses. A lot of my clients just don't think it's appropriate. They think it's too intrusive on the neighbors and on the neighborhood.
A lot of places, though, there are in residents, maybe the community as a whole, like a Waukesha, has a diverse array of development, but a lot of the homes that are being rented there are right in residential areas, it's not just on a commercial district.
No, we're not talking about commercial districts at
Right.
all. That's the issue, is this is like a commercial use in a residential district.
Okay.
Well, so I'm very familiar with the problem property that we had previously. And I know the next door neighbors well. And I know how disruptive it was to that neighborhood. It was a real problem. I would be in favor of something as restrictive as we really could, and quite honestly, given the fact that we don't allow it less than 120 days now, 7 days is a dramatic difference. I would be in favor of making this restrictive. I think that, I know what happened at that property. I saw some of what happened at that property, and clearly that's an example of this going poorly. But given the fact that you can't count on it going well, I think that we very much need to protect the characteristics of our village.
Anyone else? I'm not sure we're ready to act on this meeting.
Well, I think Attorney has recommended we don't act
Right.
tonight. But I don't know, we kind of interrupted his presentation. I don't know if he wants to go.
Well, I could go further through the ordinance, but I think I pointed you to the headings, and if you want to see more of the details, you know where to look. You will be seeing this again. It's going to circle back, presuming that you don't adopt it tonight. You could adopt the licensing component tonight, but my suggestion is that you let it track with the zoning and do them both together.
I feel like it's a lot to absorb, and I think giving us another look at it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, to me too. I think that this is. Yeah, to me, I'd like to think about this more to solicit citizen input and to try to get a better sense of what other residents think about this issue.
Yeah, I think, if I was, it's up to me, I'd put it on old business for next month, and before we even think about going to a public hearing or planning commission. That's just, I think there's a lot.
Yeah, and I recall the prior debate when we came to the 120 days, and we gave that considerable thought when we addressed it.
Okay. That's good. And I guess, Mayor, this is maybe I want to make sure I understand this.
Okay?
Page 3, under E4, it's a parking statement. A minimum of 1 off-street parking stall shall be provided for every guest bedroom with a minimum of 3 parking stalls. We don't really define what a stall is. I mean, I'm just thinking, are we going to define it as the standard, is a stall's 14 feet, 14-foot stall, and measure 3, and does that mean a lot of the driveways in Fox Point won't be eligible for this kind of rentals? Or am I getting out over my skis?
We could, we could define that better.
We could define
could
what
just-
benefit is kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Well, we could, sure. As you read this, you will see that there is no effort made to ensure that everyone's going to be able to operate a vacation rental.
And that's a restricted part.
Yeah, it's not designed with that in mind. It's designed with how do we best protect the village and the property values and the health, safety, and welfare and the neighborhood. And if that, in doing that, it means that some people, they don't have enough off-street parking, so they can't do it, so be it.
Okay.
Mr. Rowland.
How about garbage pickup? Is this a business now, they don't get their garbage picked up?
Don't think we addressed garbage pickup. It's still a residence, it's still in a residence district.
But it's a business.
Yeah, this is sort of where the issues lie. You have a residential property that's being used as a business. And this is, we regulate home occupations, signage. I don't know if we should address signage in here, but things like that. And what it basically boils down to, you can run a business in your home as long as it, from the outside, it doesn't have any appearance of a business and it doesn't disrupt your neighbors with, lighted signs or business signs or things like that. But it is a real point of tension when you have somebody who wants to use their piece of property that's zoned residential for business-like activities.
Well, I suggest that we take no action on items 6A and B with the expectation that we will revisit it at an upcoming meeting. Thank you for the presentation. Well, it was very interesting and a little bit surprising, at least to me, that this came out the way it did.
We go on to another subject.
Yes, now we go on to another subject that is a continuing preemption issue. 6C, telecommunications facilities, small wireless facilities siting. We all got a memo from the village attorney on this. I asked the village attorney if he would present on it briefly so we could get a better sense of what we are expected now to do by the state and what this new technology might be.
Sure, and I will be happy to answer any questions. What I'm handing out is, I just want to make sure we understand what we're talking about. The first couple of pictures, this is how you typically see small cell installations. They go on a utility pole. All of the equipment's on the utility pole. If you look at the first page, it's an antenna. It's a supplement to the cellular network. It allows for wider distribution. It's not a substitute. It's a supplement. It helps the capacity of the system to have these small cell installations.
So in other words, cell towers aren't displaced by this technology.
No, they are not. It doesn't displace cell towers, and it's not in lieu of cell towers in new areas. They still need to have new cell towers. But it does increase the capacity. And they speak of it in terms of a 5G. 5G eventually rolls out, and we're talking about it rolling out in coming years. I think they're going to need more and more of the small stuff. If you look at the next page, you can see why. The first page looks like, well, who would ever object to that? You know, that's not even as bad as a lot of things that we have on our utility poles already. But then you flip on look at the back side of it, and you can see it's not always so pretty. And sometimes they need to have facilities on the ground, and sometimes they take those facilities that would otherwise be on the ground and strap them to the pole. And
What's the spacing on these? How, far apart are they typically?
they will give different answers to that, but in general, they're pretty close together. They're like something between 100 and 300 feet apart.
Really?
To create these connections between the small cells.
So in a village like Black Point, you could have dozens of these.
Oh yeah. They rolled out the small cell in Milwaukee, and they put in, I don't know how many hundreds of them. I've dealt with it in some other communities, and they've done, 20 or something in Oconomowoc. They did 15 or so in West Milwaukee. But that was just one carrier, and of course, the different carriers are all.
Yeah, because these are not the kind of things where they have I forget the word in the term is, but where they co-locate their,
No, in fact, I don't think they can co-locate these ones. Something about the technology doesn't let that work.
So they can go along, just put up a pole anywhere they want along the street?
Well, the first hope is that they will put it on existing poles.
Well, the only existing poles in Cox Point are usually in our backyards.
Well, that can work,
What do so these are federal FCC regulations, correct?
Right. Well, it's regulated by the federal government and by the state. Both the federal government and the state has tried to clear the way of local regulation of this issue so that the companies can roll this technology out. I mean, everybody who has a cell phone knows why. We want these things to work. And politicians, state and federal, think that the public wants this. And so they are trying to allow it to happen. A couple more pages here. This shows some of the designs. These small cells can be taller than you realize. A lot of times they'll tell you they need a 100-foot pole.
our cell tower is 100 foot.
Right. Right.
We don't have anything else that's 100 foot in the village.
The large cell can be way more than 100 feet. The one in the village is only 100. But this is just a reminder of what the large cell looks like. Much bigger, more involved. So the state and federal government has preempted us on both, but they're now a little different. What the FCC recently did is they created new rules about timing, about fees, and control over such things as aesthetics, spacing, undergrounding, and tried to establish a framework for how these can be regulated. In some areas, the federal government is more restrictive than the state. In some areas, the state is more restrictive than the federal government. And so they overlap, which is the reason why I recently sent out one of our general opinion letters that is quite complicated with tables because we have to mix and match with these federal regulations that they don't. They're complicated enough in their wording that you just have to review the whole framework every time when these come up.
One of the things you talk about here is updating the right-of-way ordinance. What would be the nature of the update there?
Well, first of all, what that's about is telecommunications companies have contended that they're a utility. They have a right to be in our right-of-way, just like any other utility. We can't prohibit them from the right-of-way. And about a couple years ago, one of the companies circulated messages throughout the state saying, we want to put up this pole, it's going to be 200 feet, it's going to be right in the right-of-way, and they sent out these half-baked drawings, and some communities were getting them and looking at the drawings and saying, boy, they're going to put a 200-foot pole right here at this intersection, you know, it's gonna block traffic, or it's gonna be right in the sidewalk, or, you know, we were able to get rid of that whole idea because they didn't submit appropriate applications and their drawings were bad. But it's come full circle. They are, with the small cell, pushing this out in rights of way. They want to go on existing utility poles that are already in the right of way. They'll go on our poles if we own them. There's some communities that have an electric utility, and so that their poles, and they have to pay the community to go on it. If they aren't ours, they will go on whatever poles they are. So we're not getting paid, but they're getting paid. But they expect to be able to do that the same as any other utility. We can still regulate it to some degree. And that's sort of the message, is if we want to be involved in regulating these facilities, these telecommunications facilities in our public rights of way, we need to take a look at our right-of-way ordinance. And we have to be fair. We have to treat them all the same. We can't just create special rules that apply to one utility or the other. They have to apply to all the utilities. We have done this, and I have models for you. We've done it with other communities where we've created rules because of this technology that apply to everybody, and allow for a review process before they go out. Give us, to the extent we can, some consideration of aesthetics, and sort of just a rational view of it. We don't, you know, there's just some things that shouldn't happen in the right way. It can create a hazard, and we can avoid those issues. So that's part of it, is to look at the right-of-way ordinance. The other part is we did update our zoning code to deal with telecommunications after the state preempted us. But we probably should circle back and make sure there's nothing there that needs to be updated in light of these new federal preemptions.
So you will be proposing an ordinance for us?
I'd be happy to do that.
It sounds like.
I think we would like that.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I'll propose 2 ordinances.
This is happening in some communities, as far as what I mean, the small cell rollout, if you will. And there are deadlines that you have to meet, and either you're deemed to have approved it if you don't meet the deadline. How is this happening? Are they kind of, because I assume the cell tower operators are getting better at this too, and so I would think that when they're ready to move into a community, they just move in. And, I guess maybe we won't be that desirable market right away, but it seems like this is something we need to have in place later.
I agree.
The world is full of disruptive technology. And just from a policy perspective, and I actually was called tail end of last week. If you remember last session, Representative Ott had a cell tower siting bill when they're so far away from lot line. It did not pass. But apparently the assembly, because they do a lot of work before they start, is working on, allegedly, a more municipally friendly cell tower siting piece of legislation that may or may not include these guys. So I'm going to a meeting with Representative Lee, Kurt Kuczynski, and I, and Representative Ott, to see what I think is going to be the start of it. We're going to start chewing on this guy back here with the siting. And primarily, if you remember last year, his legislation had more to do with proximity to residential neighborhoods. And all that sort of stuff. Apparently, it has expanded somewhat, I haven't seen it, to include discussions about cell tower sightings in non-residential areas but also perhaps the small cells. Making guarantees, first off.
Well, thanks for watching that for us. All right, we'll move on to item 7, future agenda items. Does any board member wish to put a matter on a future agenda? Hearing none, announcements. I will defer to Mr. Bonstead.
I have no announcement.
Ms. Simpkins. Ms. Sumner.
No announcements.
Mr. Corrado.
For the update on that old project in the air, we had a really good meeting with the representatives today, this morning for a couple hours. And it was kind of a probably midway point of their progress report. And just for a piece of information, they made a lot of good progress on their scope of work so far. But the public meeting for this is going to be on February 5th, which is Tuesday, February 5th at 6:30 p.m. We're meeting here in this room, and that will be public noted, our notice, of course, and we get a key component of the public input portion of that scope of work.
Mike, can you make sure the room's available? Can you check? Yeah, good, all right, thank you. Don't forget that.
I'm sorry, February 5th, I think it's Tuesday, February 5th.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Bonstead.
I know that we're not supposed to be discussing these things, I guess, but it would be helpful to know whether this is the kind of meeting we should avoid or if we should free to attend.
That was the board members.
Board members, yeah.
Mr. Village Attorney, thoughts?
This is AIRS presenting their initial thoughts on the pool.
And getting feedback from the public on it, correct, or the citizens.
Understanding
It's
that-
probably going to be entirely legislative. I can't think of a judicial component to this. I don't think there's a rezoning necessary, depending on what
Both
develops.
sites are now institutional.
So I think that if the board is properly noticed to be there, my only,
I think you'd be okay, we would need to post it,
yes.
and just as a possible phone thing, how many show up over here at any given time. And I also would, as I always say, when you're out in group settings, don't commit until you see the presentation, because sometimes people try to pin you down. You know, that's just sage advice.
Mr. Ullman?
No announcement.
I have one announcement. Some of you may have seen the article in the front page of the Sunday New York Times, January 6, 2019, about the dark store legislation, focusing on and featuring the city of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. So the issue is now getting national attention in a very prominent national newspaper. Mr. Village Manager?
Yeah, I just have, and before you go on, this probably sounds scarier than it is, but I was given these letters by a village resident to distribute to you all. I wanted to make sure that I handed them all personally. And if you have any questions as to what they are, primarily to what they are not, please call me. Because these are not, correct, Mr. Larson, these are not anything that's onerous, but you should be advised, and I was going to mail them to you, that's why they're in envelopes, and I changed my mind after talking to Eric, figured I'd just handle it with them, so I'll just pass these around, and if you have any questions, you can give me a call. That's all that.
Very well, we are agended for a closed session. We're at 9A. It is anticipated the village board will convene into closed session for the following reasons pursuant to state statute 19851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation of performance, evaluation data of any public employee over the governmental body over which the governmental body of jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically concerning the village manager. Participating in this portion of the closed session will be the village board and the village manager. This requires a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please. An affirmative vote means we agree that we will go into special session. A no opposed.
Trustee
Monstead.
Aye.
Trustee Simchik.
Aye.
Trustee Sumner. Trustee Tomato.
Aye.
Trustee Ullman.
You can't close yet.
We haven't voted yet.
Trustee Ullman.
What are we voting on?
Just say aye.
Aye.
President Frazier.
Aye. We're in closed session.
Aye.